You've probably heard the phrase, crawl before you can walk and walk before you can run. And that philosophy is prevalent in almost every technical skill that exists, including engaging actual individuals that need to be engaged during a foot pursuit. Whether you're a civilian or a cop, I think we can all get behind increasing our accountability with gunfire. If you want to help me increase that accountability and reach more people that actually care about this content, do all the weird stuff that most people don't do down below and engage with this video. Shooting during a foot pursuit is a technical skill where there are real-world implications. As the officer, there's likely some physiological responses occurring in the body which is known to affect performance, and regardless of where the foot pursuit is taking place, there will be more contextually relevant factors that exist. Maybe it's occurring in a public place where there's cars, other people, or even barriers or impediments that you need to overcome. All of those things certainly can make marksmanship more difficult. You can't expect to be successful in an engagement during a foot pursuit if you don't already have a solid foundation in the fundamental principles required to be successful. I define success as no good guys getting hurt, and if we do engage, we shoot only the necessary number of rounds to stop the threat while also getting hits where we're supposed to be getting hits. In order to arrive as close as possible to a guarantee and being accountable for your marksmanship on a foot pursuit, you have to have these certain fundamental principles established. Engaging in a foot pursuit is the run portion of the crawl, walk, run philosophy. And it really is shooting and moving, but you don't start training there. Everything I'm going to talk about and demonstrate in this video is the crawl and walk portion of foot pursuits and all things that you can do in the comfort of your own home. Not everyone has the time or the money to spend every waking moment on the range, but you should be doing something. I'll get into the instruction, demonstration, and tactical considerations of a foot pursuit in another video. There's a list of skills you absolutely need to be familiar with and capable of consistently executing to increase the likelihood you will be successful in those moments. If you can't honestly say that you have these fundamental principles down, then there is a high likelihood that if you have to engage in a foot pursuit, you will end up pointing your gun and pulling the trigger without actually applying the fundamentals of marksmanship. First, you have to have the ability to come out of your holster without issues. In the next video, I'll get into how to articulate running with your gun out and why it's probably a good idea. But just in case you're still in your holster, you can't afford to get hung up on whatever holster you are using. You should be intimately familiar with your gear and how to defeat your retention system. When you need to go now, in a moment in which the physiological responses are affecting your body, getting stuck in your holster will turn a moment from now to, oh shit. And that's going to increase the likelihood that you will speed up and do something just to do something, which is probably start shooting before you've even begun to apply the fundamentals. Two of the most common mistakes that I see officers doing is shooting with one eye closed and searching for their red dot. You have to train yourself to shoot with both eyes open because it opens up your field of view. And more importantly, in situations where you have to go now, which can happen during a foot pursuit, you're just not going to close one eye and spend the time to acquire your sights. Once you're shooting with both eyes open, you need to have the ability to find your sights within your vision of your dominant eye without having to manipulate your gun or your arms to find your sight. Again, under stress, you won't take the time to search for your sights, and there's a high likelihood you won't have time for it either. You learn all of those things through repetition and dry fire, and it really doesn't take all that long for you to learn what your process is to achieve those things. To assist you with finding your sights and your vision, I'll have a video I made on how to find your natural point of aim linked at the end of this video. The next skill you need to be familiar with is ready positions. Every engagement, unless you're posted up somewhere for a period of time, is a ready up drill. Traditionally, in law enforcement, we have the SWOOL position or the low ready position, but for foot pursuits, I like to utilize the high ready position or what I call the threat ready position. The SWOOL position is more of an administrative approach to having your gun out and pointing it in a safe direction. Maybe you're standing behind cover or something like that. And then you have the low ready position, which is there is maybe a potential threat or you're holding on something or even moving slowly, maybe doing CQB or moving up to a vehicle. The high ready position is more of a natural running position. You're going to have your gun pointed in a safe direction. Your finger is, of course, going to be off the trigger. And then you have what I call the threat ready position, where your gun is pointed at the bad guy, at the threat. Again, finger off the trigger. And that, again, is a more natural running position with your firearm. So when I talk about learning ready positions and being familiar with ready positions with a handgun as it relates to foot pursuits, personally, I'm talking about a threat ready position, so from a threat ready position, or a high ready position. There's also the option to run with your handgun down. It is pointed in a safe direction, but for me, that's an unnatural starting position, and as much as possible, would like to try to keep everything the same. It is close to coming out of your holster, right, because your gun's down here, but when you're running with your gun like this, in order to bring your gun up, you're actually kind of tracing a C to do that, whereas when you are coming from the holster, your gun is oriented towards the threat as soon as practical and you're punching out from here. And that's actually more relative to just starting in this position here or in this position here. Either way, none of it's wrong. Whatever you decide to do, just make sure you're familiar with it. After you have all that stuff worked out, now we can start implementing some movement. Just like when you're on the flat range and you have your knees slightly bent and maybe you have a slight bend in your waist forward to allow you to manage recoil, that's a good foundation that allows you to move in and out of position quickly. You're not walking like you normally would in terms of body position because what's happening when you are deciding to pull the trigger? Probably something significant like the bad guy pulling a gun at you, pointing a gun at you, or even worse, firing at you. Which means it's very likely that your body is going to have a physiological response, which is probably going to be you lowering yourself in anticipation for what's happening. So instead of being upright and being forced into that position, it's better to just start there. Once you've developed that good body position, now you go into putting all of that stuff together, and you can do that by working from the holster. You can do this moving forward, you can do it moving backward, and you can do it moving laterally. But for the situations where you'll have your gun out, you also want to work these positions from the ready positions that we already discussed in the same way. Those are all of the things beyond the actual marksmanship piece that you absolutely need to be comfortable with before you even begin implementing dynamic movements. If you have an opinion like most people do, you should let us know about it in the comment section. After tapping on this photo to subscribe to the channel, you should consider watching this video because YouTube is recommending it specifically for you.
We got crews coming.